have been working with craniosacral therapy and polarity therapy and a few other bodywork therapies for at least 40 years on autistic children. And I've never counted how many I worked with, but it's probably around 1,000 children, because I worked in summer, special summer camps for autistic children for years. And besides having a private practice and working with children. Parents of autistic children are struggling so much already that I can't just send them to other professionals all the time. So I've learned a lot of other methods to put together. But the main three ones I mentioned before is the craniosacral therapy, polarity therapy, the metamorphic technique, and then of course there's sand therapy, which is totally different than like touch therapy or energy therapy. It's an energy therapy in a way. Everything is energy, but those are the main ones. We're in the sand room, the sand play therapy room, and there's two boxes usually here, the dry sand and the wet sand. It's already dried out a little bit because this is a picture made by a 4-year-old, just turned 4. I've been working with him since he's 3. The doctors labeled him, I'm not going to use his real name because the parents don't want that, but he was labeled autistic because he doesn't speak yet. But he is so bright, I probably hadn't had such a bright child in my room often.
So Andrea, can you tell us why, how you ended up working with children and why autism in specific?
Okay, I guess when I came back after the war, after escaping from Belgium to England, and we came back to Poland, and only then did I realize that I have no family, I came back with my parents and my sister, but everybody was killed in the family. My grandparents, my father's whole family, and children there, everything. And for some time, I guess I started becoming more conscious of what's around me and what happened during the war and after the war. And my first feelings were strange, about like really feeling guilty that I survived and all these people didn't survive, and why did I survive? And then there was some conscious thoughts after some time that I survived to help children, so that this wouldn't maybe be repeated, or children that went through big problems in their life. And that's when I was pretty young still, but that became a strong conviction in me that I'm alive to do something. And that was something that came from my father, from my family, that we should be helping humanity in the whole world. So it was already installed in me somehow, and so that came onto fertile ground, really, that I need to help children. And then the first autistic child that I met was in a home for children near Warsaw, actually in a monastery where nuns were taking care of children, and I met this autistic blind child, and I just felt like these children were so different and so misunderstood. After I met one autistic child, I started reading books about autism. I was just a teenager then, and I basically was programmed by my father to become a chemist because he was a chemist, and from childhood, wherever it was possible, he would give me books about chemists. But I felt here that my duty is really, and why I'm alive, is to help children of the the world. Something came to me 20 years ago, that there's some connection with the pineal gland. The pineal gland, as I had said, is the first gland that appears in the body, that we can feel it, has all the necessary building blocks to make hallucinogenic substances. And because the parents were talking to me often that my kid looks like he's on drugs, and because I noticed very big pupils in many of the children autistic children I worked with, that kind of was the basis to my hypothesis that problems with autism stem from malfunction of the pineal gland and a disturbed melatonin pathway, because the pineal gland, in the pineal gland, melatonin is created. And the fact that the pineal gland contains the necessary building blocks to make hallucinogenic substances, it has the highest level of serotonin that any other place in the body has, and that anywhere in the body. And serotonin is a precursor for making melatonin. And it also has unique enzymes, so that also are needed to make hallucinogenic substances. So the pineal gland felt like really the place where I should be looking. Melatonin is made from serotonin. This is melatonin. And then through the process of dehydration and reduction, melatonin changes into Makaiser compound. This is a picture of Makaiser compound called 10 or 6, depends like which side you count from, methoxyharmolan, Makaiser compound. And here is a picture for comparison. These are substances really in nature, in plants, harmolines and harmines.
Andrea, can you tell us why there would be an abnormal development of melatonin and impaired pathway?
Well, melatonin can through cyclic dehydration go to this hallucinogenic substance. Why that happens, and doesn't happen with other children but happens with some children, is what I postulate is that based on what Rick Stressman talks, that there's a security shield around the pineal gland, and he actually described it for DMT, which is a hallucinogenic substance called the spirit molecule, with the one that he works with. But that security system can be overridden if there's some big traumas happening. There can be traumas that, as I postulate, for autistic children, the same process might happen, and the traumas might be from the beginning of conception through the 9 months of pregnancy and after. Traumas that happen to the mother, traumas that happen to the baby in the mother's womb, traumas that happen to the babies at birth, and also pollutants, chemicals, vaccinations, fluorides, and ever-existing electromagnetic fields that are higher and higher now than we used to have.
So can you tell us about the two studies, the ones you did in Montreal and the one that you were involved with in Poland?
Okay, I did a small study in Montreal, which is of course not not really scientifically valid because it was small. But in 5 children, I found 4 children in their urines. There was the presence of Mackenzie compound, of that 10-methoxyharmalan about which we talked, which I postulate cause a lot of the characteristics of autism. And then I did, under my direction, a group in Poland in the chemistry department did the work with 120 samples of urine of autistic children, and also the comparative like I did before. And we proved that in the 120 samples of children children which were diagnosed with autism, most of them, 117 samples, showed the presence of Mackenzie compound. I wasn't surprised when I heard that at all, because that's what I postulated all along. But it took me a long time to find a group that was interested in proving that. And here this was the subject of a PhD thesis for one of the people, for somebody in that group that worked with the samples of many samples.
Where do they send the PhD? Where do they send the Nobel Prize to?
There's no Nobel Prize right now. We thought maybe it would be. We thought Nature would want to print it, but it didn't at the beginning. And we'll see when it goes further, when we find a way to stop that process happening.